Hello and welcome to the demonstration of integration of Microsoft SharePoint with HP Quality Center using Kovair Omnibus. The demonstration flow we'll be using today will start with Microsoft SharePoint and we'll create a new requirement. And that requirement will be replicated to Quality Center using Kovair Omnibus. In Quality Center, we'll create a new test case and link it to the requirement. Also, we'll create a new test set and then we will run it, and while running that test set, we'll fail that test set. Now, both the test case and the test set will be replicated to Microsoft SharePoint. Not only that, also the link we created between the requirement and the test case in Quality Center will be replicated to Microsoft SharePoint. So at the end, we'll have requirement, test case, and test sets in both the tools exactly the same way along with their relationship. I strongly recommend you to visit and view our Introduction to Omnibus Integration Platform to understand better how Omnibus technology actually works and helps you in integrating multiple different tools. Okay, so on my left hand side I have SharePoint, and on my right hand side I have the HP Quality Center windows open. So we'll start with the SharePoint. So let me maximize it. We'll start with a new requirement. So let's go and add a new requirement. So this is a very simple form for the requirements in SharePoint. We will call it a demo requirement from SharePoint, just to specify where we have created that requirement. And let's save this one. So that has created my requirement here. Now let us check out and see in Quality Center whether that particular requirement is replicated or not. So let's maximize Quality Center window here, and here is the requirements, and let me refresh the requirements list here. And here is my requirement. Let me expand this column here. So here is the demo requirement from SharePoint, the one we have just created from SharePoint. So the first thing we'll do in Quality Center is create a test case which will be linked to this requirement. So let's go to test plan and let's create a test case under this particular project. We'll call it a demo test case from HP QC. So here is our demo test case from HP QC, and what we'll do, we will create a link, this requirement coverage, create a link between this one and also requirement here. So we have created a link between our requirement, which got replicated from SharePoint, to the test case we have just created. The next is we would like to actually create a test set and then run this particular test case. So let's go to the test lab here and create a new test set here, and we'll call it a demo test set from HPQC, and then to this particular demo test set we will link, or we will actually include the test case we have just created here in QC. So I'm just dragging and dropping it to our test set, and here is the test case, and then we would like to actually run this. So let's go to run window. We'll call it demo test run from HP QC, And we will also fail this one. Let's say this particular test case has been failed when we try to demo it. And that's all. Now we can end run this one. As you can see, this test case shows the status is failed. So now let's try to go to SharePoint and see what's happening there. Let's go to SharePoint now. So in SharePoint, already we have the requirements which we created in SharePoint, but let's go to the test case and let's see what is there. So here is the test case which we have created from QC, and that is shown here. And not only that, it is also linked to the test run as well as related to the requirement. And this linking has been done in QC. When we created the test case, we linked it to the requirement. When we created the test run in the context of the test case, so those are also linked. So if we go to the detail of this particular test case, we'll see that this is related to the test run as well as this is related to the requirement which actually was created initially in SharePoint. And if we go back to the requirements for a second, we'll see that our requirement is also related to the test case, and that is shown in this list also. And finally, let's go to the test run and look at our test run here. And this one is related to the test case, as we have already seen, and the status is shown failed, because that is exactly what happened when we actually run that particular test case in HPQC. So what we have done briefly is we started with SharePoint, created a requirement. The requirement got replicated in Quality Center. In Quality Center, we created a test case and linked it to the requirement. And then we created a test set, and within that test set, we have added the test case. And then we run manually the test case, and it failed. Then we came back to SharePoint, and we saw the test case and test run, both of them are replicated. Moreover, also the linkage or the relationship between the test case and the requirement, as well as the relationship between the test case and the test run, are also replicated from HPQC to SharePoint. So Kovair Omnibus not only replicates the data, but it also replicates the relationship between different objects from one tool to another tool. And that concludes this particular demonstration.